Hey, good afternoon. It was really nice to be here again. And in this afternoon, we have with us Dr. Nick Tillman. Thank you so much to be here with us this afternoon. Thank you so much for your presence.
Thanks for
And,
having me.
and also we have here today Bruna Belote from the University Federal of Paraná. Thank you, Bruna, for your presence here this afternoon as well.
Thank you, Dr. Elizabeth. Thank you, Dr. Nikki, to be here. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So today it's like from the series Woman in Science, and since last week we decide that we will have a two generation of animal science woman talk about a subject, and today we're talking about field trials. And Nikki, you attract a lot of people because they are really try to understand what's going on in this field trial. But before we go for it, I'd like two of you, starting by Nikki, to say about your life and how this statistical and field trials come into your life.
Yeah, so thank you. So for those that have seen my bio or have not seen, so just a short introduction of myself. So I have a PhD in poultry science, and while I was doing that, my major professor, Gene Pesty, he's very known for modeling and a bunch of trial, constructing a proper trial. So I got interested in that, and also with profitability. So then I went into pursuing a master in agriculture and applied economics. And that's what got me into learning a lot of statistics and very interesting perspective based on the economist perspective of getting the data. And so when I got a job for about 4 years with two companies in US, and then I worked closely with my client in US, running trials, helping them looking at their data. And then one of my clients said, "Why don't you have your own business?" So it started from there, and it's been over 4 years now with my nutritionist.
This is very nice. In fact, this situation, Nick, that scientists become the owner of a business is also something that I'm very like I say, congratulate to you, because it's not common that a scientist take and say, no, I will take my own business, and I will. So congratulate you for that. Bruna, tell me about you. You did some trials in field that I know. Tell me about your life and how you have this experience with trial and field.
Yes, sure. I'm Bruna Belote. I am a vet. I'm from Brazil. I am master in animal science with focus in poultry science, and specifically in gut health of broilers. And now I'm doing my PhD with the same line of research in poultry's health. And in fact, I did a trial in the field in last year. And this trial was a really challenge for me, because I was used to do these trials on the laboratory facilities when I could control everything. I could control the temperature, I could control the challenge, I could control how many people enter in my facilities. But in the field, I don't have this control. So this was my big challenge. I work with another company, with a commercial company of broilers producer, and with a company of additives to feed for animals. And we evaluated in more than 100 barns, half of these barns with additives and another half without the additives, to evaluate performance and animals' health. So this was the first step that we thought, but when we start to design, we think, okay, but we need to think the other variances that we have here. We need to think the type of the ventilation. So we need to evaluate the type of ventilation, the type of management. And when I said management, I said the water, quality of water, the quality of litter, the height of nipple and the feeder, and all the things that are involved in the management, and which we need to think in hatchery, for example. If the hatchery will interfere in our studies, for example. So this was my big challenge to do this experimental trial.
Yes, this is important because you are talking that you are not more doing it in the farm that is control and experimental, and you go to the not one farm, but in a complex with many that put all together. So Nick, let me know about your. There is a lot of people, and you receive a lot of comments before you come, and everyone that is listening to us, if you have some questions or some comments, please let us know, and then we have Nikki and Bruna here to help us to understand. But I think the main concern here, Nick, is like, can we really do a field trial and think that this is, I can take like a robust decisions from a field trial?
Yes, the answer to that is yes. I have put out several ways of running field trials, and I gave a talk on this subject during the PSA, this past PSA meeting. So you can do flock, feeding a flock, skip a flock, that type of thing. But then you're dealing with the seasonal effect. So then you have to look at that and maybe compare with historical data. But you need to know that up front, before you go in, you have to pick the farm that actually represent your population. I talk about population, meaning whatever the most uniform farms within your company, right? So you want to focus on those because the poor one would be on the tail end of the curve. If you think of a normal distribution curve, right? You focus on the one in the middle. So the poor one could be management issue, disease or whatever. Those, you don't want to pick them when you want to test a product, except you're testing a product that could help with, solving the disease. Then you might pick a group of farm in those poor performance farm. So it depends on the goal of what you're trying to do. Then you go in there and try to understand your population, and then pick a proper one for each of those tests. If that makes sense.
Okay. When you talk, there is one questions that people have left. It's about can we do a trial in field? We found a control one. Like if you don't have a control, how can we know that that product is okay? Because you are saying you can take the data from the previous trial, from the previous flock, sorry, but many things could change in between one flock to another flock. The season, for example, let's say here in Quebec now you are going to winter. So if I just take the flock 1 month before, there is a hot and warm outside, and even if you have the facilities, they have difference in terms of how the equipment's. And if I take it 1 month from now, for sure it'll be snow. So how can we compare these results?
Yeah. So I had a customer that asked me the same question, and so they tested when they change a product, right? They changed all their farms and the whole company. So they don't have a control. In that case, they're just feeding the product, but they start noticing that, okay, their feed conversion is going up, they know they're losing yield maybe. So how do they know that it's an effect of that product right? Not everything else that's going on in the production. So we start looking at that particular period. We picked the complex of farms that have, like I said, in the median of your production performance. And then we go back the year before using the same time period. So now you're eliminating the seasonal effect, correct? As you know, a degree, it's not going to be perfect still, but a lot more data. The more data, the better. Then the more farms, the better. The more complexes that you have the data available, the better. Then you just start doing data mining, use statistics, and I talked a lot about you shouldn't just take an average of your production data and make a decision on that, because it can bias, one way or the other way. So you should kind of looking at what are the variations that could change my result, measure them, and then collect them, and then put them in the statistical model, and that would be more reliable result to make a decision on.
When you talk about the statistical model, what is your unity? Because, for example, when I'm doing a trial at a university, an institution, and a research center like we have here in Jeffo, we have like a pen or a cage and a number of birds that is in there. So when we are in field, what we consider our experimental unit?
That is a very good question. So depends on what you are doing, right? Or depends on, I would say, how detailed can you collect the data. So most of the company in US, they only get one number for the whole house, right? Whether bird weight or feed intake, and then they calculate feed conversion and condensed mortality, whatever. It's only going to be one number, but there's several houses within that farm. And we assuming under the same practice, those should be repeatable, right? But not always the case. That's why we used statistics to help us look at the differences, even within the farm, if there's exist. Then you just put that in a model when you analyze the data as well. If that answers your question.
Yes, Bruna, when you did your trial in field, how do you consider the unity? Because you said you work with how many farms?
100 barns.
100 barns. So how do you define it? How do you design it?
So in this particular trial, when we need to choose these barns, we need to think in the product that we will apply it. So we need to choose all these barns in the start of the flock. So in the first, we need to apply these additives in the first week in the start diet. And then we need to evaluate the second week of life, the birds, the gut health, applying the ISE methodology. So we need to choose all these barns according to the time that these barns will start, these flocks will start.
So, but what is your unity? What you consider unity? The bird? You consider the unity
Yes.
the farm? What you consider as
yes?
as
In this example, we consider the barns are unity.
the barns are unity.
Yes, but
Okay,
when we evaluate the health of birds, we consider the bird as our unity.
Okay. So what do you think about that, Nikki? Like the barns be for performance, and then she used the bird for gut. How do you think about that?
Yeah, like I said, because the data available to us is only per house, so that would be our experimental unit. But in statistics, you want to repeat, right? We want more replication for that environment, which is the farm. So if you can get more houses within that farm, now you start having replications. You see what I mean? So what Bruna mentioned is when you collecting the birds to do some,
Sampling, yeah.
in scores or whatever, then that's per particular house, but correct, particular barn. So what you can do is you just block that by houses within the farm. That give you more power.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there is the classical situation, and I live this classic situation every day here, because anytime when my colleagues go to sell some products, and in my case, I'm doing new products, so they want to test it, and they always say, "Oh, let's put one here and one here. Like I have two barns, I put the product here and the another product in another barn, and I will compare it." And this is like a very classical, because I think all the world use the same. What do you think about that? What the advantage or disadvantage to use this classical one barn against another barn?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I have a client that they call it pair house trap, right? So, but what they do differently is, like I said, they replicated houses within the farm, and then also running several farms. So now you replicated farm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said earlier, you're trying to pick the farms that have very similar performance. Depends on what you're trying to test. If you test health-related product, you want your bird to have a disease and then see if it can solve the problem, then you might pick those farms that have the problem. But they should be under circumstances of like similar management. We talked about the fan speeds and all that, density, those, or even coming from the same flocks and hatchery, feed mill, everything has to be the same as much as possible in order for you to actually make a comparison.
We are talking a lot here about poultry, because I know that three of us come a lot from this side. But let's change the subject here. Let's think not subject but the species. For example, when you talk about swine, and you have a farm in swine, especially post-weaning, the piglets comes from everywhere. In different, and then they mix it. How can we solve this situation to be more precise in this analysis and field? Do you have any tips that we can go for it?
Are you talking about receiving piglets for a research trial? Or
in the commercial farm, like I want to test a product in commercial farm in piglets, and it's the same situation. I put one barn against another barn, winning, but they are like coming from different, origins, and they mix. And then there is some tips that we can follow up to reduce the variation, many variation. I'm just saying about the origin of piglets, but there is also size and another.
Right. Yeah, I think that's getting very difficult. Broilers are much easier. So. But what I've seen in terms of piglets, there's a lot of differences in weight, right, coming in. So that might be one thing you should consider, is maybe blocking by weight. Use that to reduce your variation. So I don't know what's the impact of the piglets coming from different sources would be. But if that's something you're concerned, that's going to be hard because you have to mix them into a pen, right? So I don't know. I mean, you probably want to minimize that as much as possible, but then rank them by weight. Hopefully that could help.
So yes, and my colleague also, the Villalobos, he's put a questions here. He worked with ruminants, and he said Because you said I can use the results of last year. But he asked, but in last year, it was a different feed with different ingredients. How can I solve this situation?
Yes, I'm trying to think ruminant. Ruminants is harder, probably, going from broiler, swine, and then ruminant. I'm dealing with some ruminant data quite a bit, and I see the challenge that y'all are doing. It's very hard. I would say in that case, though, nothing you can do, but if you have more data, that would give you more, how you say it, leeway of maybe look at the differences. And if you even know what have changed between one year to the other, then you can put that as another factor and see if that's have any impact to the change when you run the model. So
Yes,
the more data you know, the more data you collect, you should put all that when in consideration when you analyze the data.
but this is his feeling or it's science? Like, it's a feeling or it's science? Because at the end of the day, you have so many variations and you are trying to put as much as you can in the situations that you can compare something, right?
Right, and you'll be surprised if you have a lot of, let's say, farms or lots of farms data. You'll be surprised what you will find. I mean, a trend or something. And I mean, of course, you're going to end up with some outliers, but those can be get rid of if you have a lot of data set to play with. So.
When you talk about broilers and I think poultry in general, but basically broilers, it's I think there is many aspects that we can't control. And we can also have a very good data coming from experimental station. But especially for swine, and it's much more special for ruminants, most of the situations, there is very few really experimental station of ruminants. Most of the data are doing in commercial, semi-commercial situation. So I think that it's really a challenge, right, to take in count on it. And questions that arise, it was also, how can we use a field trial and publish it? What is the point? Like if you are a reviewer, and I know that you are a reviewer of many papers, many journals, how can you consider a field trials when we design a field trial? What you as a reviewer will take in count to say, wow, it's a field trial, but it's worth to publish it.
Bruna, you writing a paper? What is your concern on the paper?
Yes. This is great, Nikki. Thank you. So my concern is, I think the most concern that I have here is this difference between the quantity of the data. So how could I compare 5, I don't know, system ventilation, for example? How could I compare system ventilation, 5 barns have negative pressure with 20 farms that are positive pressure? So when I have a control situation in experimental trials or in laboratory, I know the exact number, the numbers match. So how this is, I think this could be the main point that the reviewer could ask if it's possible I do this.
Yeah, I think if you have the data and you run stat on that and see if there's any effect from the difference between those two scenarios, right? If there's none, those effect doesn't impact your response, then they shouldn't have any, excuse of not accepting it. So that would be what I would do is in order to publish a paper, you have to put out, okay, how did you do it? How many N that you use. This farm were historically within, the same group that perform similar. So we're not picking and choosing the best farm to get our product, for example, right? So, and then if there's any differences among those farms, then we show them that they're not statistically different. Then all the effect that we're seeing is actually coming from the product, not from the farm or anything else.
Yes.
I think, in my opinion, it's important to describe what you are doing to avoid to compare like bananas and apples, right? You need to describe what you are doing, because in field, if you're not able to control, you should be able to describe what you are comparing with, right? If in the experimental farm, I can control. I say I want 10 animals with this weight, and I put this feed, and I put this ventilation. But if you're not able to control, for me in field, it's important to describe. Well, in this, I have these animals, I have this temperature, I have this. I think as much as information you have to describe that situation that you have to compare with another situation is a key for field trials, because as you cannot control, you can describe, and then you can block it. I think it could be, I don't know what you think about that, but for me, it's like a key for field, because otherwise, if you can't control, at least you can describe it, right?
Yep. And if they're different, then you use them as a blocking factor, as a random effect example.
There is a question here from Karin Franco. Thank you, Karin, for your questions. She asked, if you have results from field trials, we found the statistics, just compare the results, like numerically. How do you feel about that? Yeah, you can say the truth. They are here to listen.
Yeah, I don't like telling people they're wrong. But sometimes, it's run it again like 5 more times and see what you get, right? If you keep getting the same result, then okay, maybe that's true. But next time you're going to get something different. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
How can you say that, it's working? It's not working.
So I think can I like translate this answer that you guys give is like it's not what people think that we just. I think that to be a scientist or to test something, if you want to test something, you should never forget the principle that is like replication. You need to have replication. So if you really want to test a product, if you want to test the system, if you want to test anything, we should put some effort. It's not just to put there, right? We need to put effort. And I have as a professor, I have 15 years of academy. And of course that I have many students that come from this side. And we talk about the statistical, and we talk about many things. And later on, when I met these guys in the different situations, they are nutritionists, they are in the companies, they always say, oh, let's test the product one against another one. I say, what? You have a PhD and you are saying that? So I think that is like we have one scientist in the academy and one scientist when they go to the companies and this kind. And basically my main message my main objective with this topic, Nick and Bruna, it was really to bring, like, let's put our hat, if you are a PhD, if you are a master, or if you're even don't have any title, but you want to test, you need to put the hat of scientist and say, so let's do it right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, just to add on that, so I have a client that they run pair house trial, and at the same time within the house they have mini pens in the barn, right? So, and then in the mini pens they have treatment A and B. So one house get one an A, the other one get a B, right? And within the B house they get both A and B, for example. So the result they got are the opposite. So which one you're gonna believe? An example.
You really need to replicate, right? You need, and this is what I try always when people ask you, I want to put the product in field. This is make me crazy. I say, oh my God, I stay like 2 years here doing the product, looking out the details and send to the good guys to analyze it. And now they and I need to pray. Because the only thing that I need to do is pray. Because even if I have the best product in the market, if I have a one against another one, it's just a randomized effect. And I need to pray to have a good look and just come to my barn and not the barn of another one. So this
Find out which barn's the best performance.
So it's always like that. And I think
exactly, Dr. Nikki, there is a comment of Karen Franco, and she said, I'm seeing several webinars sponsored by animal nutritional and industry without the statistical analysis. So I cannot trust on the product, even though if the product would be effective. So she saw it.
Yeah, it's another. I have a list and I have read it. I don't know. This is from Nature. You see?
Yes.
Cool.
So they say exactly what we are talking here. Sometimes we just put something out because there is no statistical significance. And Nikki, it's your area. How do you defend the statistical analysis, and what's your message to take it in account in a way that could be really applied and not something blue for all these people that are listening us?
Yeah, when you start talking statistics, people will just kind of, shut down. You can see their face shutting down. But I'm trying to make it more applied, so easier to understand. But like I said, like with my poultry science talk about the significant level, right, 0.05, that's everybody just believe in it. But I said, 0.1 might be enough for the field trial, because we have so much variation, even though we try our best, but sometimes we still could not get below 0.05. But if, 10% of the time you are wrong and you make the company make money, I think I'll take that chance, right? So I think that's a little bit of different mindset between statistics academically and field trial application.
So the time is running here. I have a final question from my side for two of you. How about the future? Because the field trials will become more and more common. The barns in any species. I'm not saying just poultry, but I'm saying about dairy and swine. They have more data from the barn. You have temperature and gas and everything. Even more and more, there is computer everywhere. How do you see the future of field trials? How do you see the future of all this informations for us to really bring a difference in the analysis and conclusions from field trials.
Mhm. I start seeing a lot of companies paying more attention to their field trial. Like I said, selection of farms and complexes that be very consistent, pick them and use them to run field trial. And I've seen success. They've been doing really well. So I think it's just I think we're gonna go upward. We're gonna learn more about what we got in terms of farm variation. And we know that because we feed everybody the same, hopefully. And then, look at your data and then decide which one you want to use, and then you can run trials successfully.
Bruna, what do you think?
Yeah.
How is the future?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Nikki, and especially because when we did something in laboratory, the next step is apply this additives or this product in the field. So this is the question: my product work? So the mainly questions need to be answered somehow. So here, talking with Dr. Nikki, we know this is possible to do this experimental in the field, and if this products are work or not.
So there is artificial intelligence that's coming over as well, right? You can put and cross. What do you think, Nick, about artificial intelligence? They could help us to improve the decision, or it's real, or it's a dream?
Yeah, I think you still need human intelligence to guide it at some point because, garbage in, garbage out, right? So, yeah, the inputs is very important. Yeah, what kind of input that you want to put it in, then, then use computer to help us.
Very, very good. So we are in the end, and now is that time that I give to you like a final message about the subject and about also for this series. I would also ask you for talk about the subject, make a message for the subject, but also a message for all the women in science or that want to be in science in the future, to proceed and to maintain this hope and find solutions for the society. Let's start with Nikki.
Yeah, I'm glad to see more and more women in our industry and more being recognized. We have a woman poultry science president now, Christine. So, nothing is not possible. So, yeah, work hard and we'll be more of us.
Bruna?
Yes, I agree with Dr. Nikki, and I'm so glad to participate in the last event here about the women in animal science. So I'm so honored to be here with two strong women in our area. So I think the main point about everything in women in science is the only thing we need is respect. It's only need. So we don't need only the respect for the men. We need respect ourselves as women because it's historical. We women are strong together. So we always be in situation that we want, and I think this is the point that we need to discuss every time. So congratulations, Dr. Elizabeth, for this event to give us voice and show our work for the world.
Yeah, this is not to be the last because you have some people asking, and we do one more
Oh,
for
okay, that's a great
yeah,
question.
for ruminants. We have a very important scientist in ruminants here in Canada, Dr. Christiane Girard, and she will come here also to
Perfect.
talk about the ruminants area. And in fact, what it's respect is the most important word, not just for women, but for all human being, right?
Yeah.
To have respect for each other is the important key here. So we still have another more, and you guys that stay at home, thank you so much for your time. And if you have more questions, you can leave here. We can pass it to Bruna, to Dr. Nikki, and we're gonna still try to find the solutions for. It's my dream to find the solutions for field trials. I really want to go through it, and it's a challenge for every one of us. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your participation. Thank you guys that follow up us in different parts of the world that you are. And you see each other next week. Okay, bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.